Sing our next guest.
Thank you very much, Satish, for those honors. We have been speaking over the past week, the past months, of so many issues and issues relating to the Hindu community. And many people have asked the question, what about Swaha? Where is Swaha in all of the national discussions? And what is Swaha's position on various matters? Well, this morning we're very happy to bring to our listeners none other than the Paramacharya of Swaha himself, the spiritual teacher of Swaha, is the spiritual head of Swaha International and a practicing pundit with over 4 decades of experience. He is the eldest son of the late Pandit Hari Prasad, who is the founder of Swaha. The Paramacharya has been pursuing his path of the ancestors, working to propagate the time-honored traditions and philosophy of Sanatana Dharma throughout Trinidad and Tobago and internationally. He is the guru of thousands of disciples, and he oversees all Swaha institutions across the country, including religious centers and branches, early childhood care and education centers, the Vishuk Bhavan Children's Home, and the Swaha Hindu College. The Paramacharya has a keen interest in the personal and spiritual development of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And on that note, we welcome His Holiness, the Paramacharya of Swaha, Pandit Hari Prasad. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kiran.
Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Let's open the batting with the issues that have been facing the national public. And I'll open the batting with that of child marriage.
Yes.
I understand that you may have your own matters that you want to raise, and feel free, but this particular matter has been at the forefront of the national discussion, and we have heard so much from members of the Muslim community. We've heard so much from other Hindu-based groups. What is Swaha's view on child marriage?
Okay, so we have already established a very long time now that this age should be lifted to 18. We stand firm on that. Now, there are various reasons for this, which we have analyzed. Now, we take it from the dynamics of a social setting. Way back in the past, the Hindu family I can speak about was an extended family. So when a young girl, say, gets married and she goes into a new home, there is that support system in that new home to help her to develop, to grow. Whereas in present day, the dynamics have changed. Young people get married, they move on their own, so that support isn't really there to help them to grow and to develop. We believe that this militates against the proper function of a marriage. The child having children, children having children, it leads to a lot of aberration in society, which we see happening right now. So we thought from that point of view, it's not really the best thing. A child should be allowed to experience her childhood, enjoy it. We believe that should also be there. Academically, if a child gets married at a young age, she doesn't have any kind of basic qualifications. If she goes to in-laws' home, she's subjected to the mercy of that family. If there's a problem, say, any fallout and whatever have you, then she's on her own. She's very dependent, not independent. And we believe that women should be empowered. In Trinidad, maybe 16, 17 years of age, people now qualify the CSEC, the basic subjects. Some go on to A-levels and so on. So we believe that it is necessary to empower them in this way. Not only, as we say, learning to sew and to cook and to whatever else have you. We believe that the young girl especially should be fully prepared to face up to life challenges in case of any eventualities. We have been told that physically, a child is not really in the best condition for childbearing. She is not developed fully. I was looking at a documentary, what it was, and even in India, they say for every 100 child marriage, 5 children die. Five children die in childbirth, which is a very high statistic as far as I'm concerned. Then I go on further. I look at the marriage vows from a Hindu perspective. The wife asks the husband to consult with her everything that he has to do in whatever sphere of life, whether physical, social, spiritual, mental. If possible, allow her to accompany him, if not with her consent. My question is, how mature and responsible is a 13-year-old, 14-year-old to carry these kind of responsibilities? So when you put all these factors together, it is our belief that, we should lift this age to 18. In addition to the fact that Trinidad is signatory to the United Nations Charter, where a child is anyone under 18. So we look at all these factors and we believe that this should be so. And from our own experience, this year we make it 50 years since I am performing rituals upon it. In addition, I taught for 25 years. I taught from over 11 till for about 23 years. I have come across a lot of children who had children, and every one I have met so far have regretted. They wish they can reverse time. They didn't have their childhood. So when you put all these things together, I really feel that it is necessary to lift this age to 18.
There's a position put forward by the Hindu Women's Organization,
Yeah.
and it's supported by the network of NGOs, that there should be a subcategory
Yes.
and an allowance for certain situations
Yes.
for persons between the age of 16
And 18,
to
yes.
get married with the relevant consent and so on. What's SWAHA's position on that proposal?
Initially, I gave some thought to that. I believe it's a practice that takes place in France, right? But when I look at it closely, an argument was put forward. By the time you go for judicial review, whatever have you, almost 2 years would have gone. You're back to 18. So that if you speak of children, and say the reasons we are giving here, that, lack of, full preparation, whatever, psychologically, otherwise, then I think that I will go for the 18.
One of the interesting elements of this entire discussion, and I agree that we should raise the age to 18 because that's what we're required to do according to the conventions that we've signed
Yes.
on. There's a disparity between the Children's Protection Authority Act and what it entails in the law, and that needed to be leveled out and everything else. But the flip side to the argument is that while we continue to focus so much attention on, and some people suggest waste so much time on a bill that should be simple, there are real issues that aren't being addressed. In that raising the age of marriage to 18 won't prevent people from, as we say in this country, shacking up and having their children the way they do. And one of the interesting, startling statistics presented by the Attorney General and by the Muslims organizations in their full-page ad is that in the same period in which there were 500 marriages of persons under the age of 18, there were 15,000 plus pregnancies of persons under the age of 18. Do you think we should be paying the same kind of attention to those issues as well?
Of course. But some people project that getting married is a solution for the pregnancy, which I disagree with. Getting them married, it doesn't prevent pregnancy or it's not a solution for pregnancy. People getting pregnant at a young age, that's a totally different issue which we need to look at very, very seriously. Right? Maybe value systems, maybe we have lost your value systems, maybe lack of parental supervision. Many factors could be responsible for that. Now, it doesn't negate the fact that we shouldn't look at lifting the age to 18 if this is the problem. It's not either this or that. It's this and that. So we need to look at this also, and we need to brainstorm and see what can be done, maybe from a social perspective, also spiritual, to prevent these things from happening. So I agree that these issues need to be looked at.
What do you think needs to be done from a social and spiritual perspective to negate these issues?
Now, from my own experience, right, I have come to realize that children growing up, they need supervision. Now, perhaps I might be stepping too much out of line, but I believe that with the UNICEF system, way back in the past, and I taught UNICEF when we started off, where half day you have children at school, next half day they are nowhere. But we don't know where they are. Parents not at home, parents at work, whatever. Lack of supervision, parental supervision, no systems have been put in place. So children are free to do whatever they want to do. So that's one aspect of it. Sex education, I think, is very, very important. We need to look at that very, very closely.
That's an interesting point because
Yes.
the Minister of Education has come out pointedly and said that sex education has no place in the schools.
I don't agree with that. It depends how we go about doing it, at what level. You need to consult with the experts. I'm not an expert, but I believe children now are very, very smart. I mean, they're being born smart, if they put it like that. And they're seeing all around them. Like, for instance, there was a case of where a young child, every 9 months he's seeing a brother coming or sister coming. He's seeing it, he observed, Ma, where is brother coming from? Now, the mother can't answer the question. She said, well, I whistle and my brother come. Your brother come. She said, okay, whistle again, let me see another one come. Now, the child is observant. Children are picking up all these things. Therefore, to my mind, they are prepared to listen to certain facts about life, which we need to put to them to prepare them for life.
How do you respond to the view that by putting sex education in schools, you are actually encouraging students to have sex?
What I'm saying here is what you put to them. If you're going to put to them about the actual sex act, then something is wrong with that at their level. Maybe you need to introduce, for instance, you have biology lessons with the human body. You deal with the human body. You point out to children within their limitations what each part of the body functions, what its function is, and you guide them along as such, and you take them to different levels. What you do in primary school, you do something different secondary school. So it is the case of preparing a proper syllabus to deal with this, not just talking about sex per se. And let's face facts. People are seeing this thing all over. On television, various places, they're seeing depicted everywhere. So they're going to ask questions and they'll be tempted to experiment. Therefore, we need to do something to harness this.
You spoke about the issue of supervision,
yes.
Parents going to work and children being home unsupervised, and you brought into the question the issue of parenting.
Yes.
How should parents and the issue of parenting be postured to deal with the social ill that you're speaking about?
I believe that parents should be prepared. They should, I mean, sometimes, we think that to become a parent is easy. Just get together, get married, and have a child. But is that what parenting is all about? To bring a child into the world is the easy part. To bring up the child in the world is the difficult part. And therefore, I believe that all people, and I'm looking at this very closely, even from a Hindu perspective, before people get married, there should be some sort of counseling, some sort of preparation, not for house and land and job, but also psychological, for responsibility with respect to children, because you are creating a new entity, which can be either an asset or a liability in society. So therefore, before you become a parent, you must be prepared. From a Hindu perspective, I can tell you this, years ago, way back in the past, before people procreate, they will undergo various spiritual practices, various preparations, psychological and otherwise. So when they produce their children, you have assets, not liabilities.
That is leaving parenting up to parents. Regrettably, there's the school of thought that parenting cannot be left up to parents, because there are many parents who do not know better, and the reason why we are in this situation is because people have not risen to the challenge.
Well, you see, a lot of parents, they become parents through internet. They have a child, the internet says do this, internet says do that, and they follow that. What I'm saying is that there must be basic preparation and education with respect to parenting and parenthood, and which doesn't really take place in our society.
So who's
a representative of your organization? For the people who are listening in to us and would want more information about SWAHA, tell us a bit about SWAHA. When was SWAHA founded?
Sure.
Some of the things SWAHA is involved in.
Okay, SWAHA was incorporated as an entity in 1993 through an act of parliament. But before that, SWAHA was existing as a Gyan Deepak Kirtan Mandali. As a matter of fact, this year will be 48 years since the Gyan Deepak was existing. So 1993, Gyan Deepak was incorporated as SWAHA. And then we had various branches and centers in different parts of Trinidad. We have the SWAHA secondary school, SWAHA Hindu College. There is SWAHA Primary, private, and we have ECC centers. We also believe that man is physical, social, spiritual, mental. Not only, we need to deal with the social aspect of man. So we have created a children's home, which is at Pinal, Vishok Bhavan. So we are looking at all these institutions, and we have our various activities being carried on. Right now we have also outreach programs on television, on radio, and so on. So we have different outreach, as we say, to trying to reach out to the public.
What does SWAHA stand for?
SWAHA, you can take it in different ways. Now, Pandits form SWAHA. And when we say SWAHA, so we say, let's use the name SWAHA. But SWAHA, Society Working for the Advancement of Human Aspirations.
Okay.
And it depends on which side of the fence you are. Some people say Society Working for the Advancement of Hari's Aspirations. That's Pandit Hari Prasad. And now it is Haridev's aspirations. It depends on which side of the fence you are on. People twist things to suit their own ends. But SWAHA is an incorporated body, and it's dedicated towards the uplift of the Hindu society and by extension national community.
What prompted the discussions that we had prior were the discrepancies, and I use the word discrepancies intentionally, when you have events such as, well, there was one about Pagwa where somebody made a statement that Pagwa should have been Saturday, well, this weekend coming and not this weekend gone.
Yes.
And we have this toing and froing every year for Diwali, for example,
Yep.
as to when really is Diwali and what's the right date, and people seem confused, and it's a discussion that I remember even as a child. We've always had this discussion ongoing as to what is the real date for Diwali. You have two separate groups, two major groups representing the Hindu faith telling you two separate things. How do we end up with situations like that?
All right, now since Swaha has been formed, right, most of the times you will find that the Mahasabha and Swaha, we carry the same dates.
Okay.
We carry the same dates.
Mhm.
Now for Phagwa this year, the full moon, the end of the Tithi was about 10 to 11 Sunday. So some people burnt Holika Saturday night, and you know, they had the celebration Sunday. Now traditionally, over the years, we have always used the first Sunday in our Karwas, as we call it, to celebrate Phagwa. So effectively, Karwas would have started Monday. That's yesterday. So that the first Sunday would have been Sunday coming. Now the thing is that Phagwa is not celebrated or could not be celebrated. Oh, let's say put it like this. You don't have to celebrate only one particular day. It's a period of time. So every day, any day you can celebrate Phagwa. So if, say, for instance, the Kendra decides that they want to celebrate next week Sunday, they're okay, they're right. If Mahasabha decides they want to celebrate Sunday gone, they're also right. This is different. Diwali is something different though. We make specific calculations, and we work like, say, new moon. Diwali is new moon night in the month of Kartik. Well, now, if the new moon spans 2 days, right, the Tithi starts one day before and ends the other day in the morning time. If you go to the other day, new moon is already past. So we use the night of the new moon. That is when the Tithi spans 2 days. So you see, these are the small calculations that we make. And what happens is that a lot of people take India time. India is 9.5 hours ahead of us.
Right.
And most people don't take that into consideration. New York, Canada, you have India pundits, they use India time. But we try to make specific calculations based upon where we are. And this is why there are some discrepancies between other calculation and what we do.
Okay. That's a pretty straightforward explanation.
Yes.
I'd expect you in Trinidad and Tobago, you'd use Trinidad and Tobago
Time.
for your calculation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Because a gentleman called the station specifically asking about that and saying that every year you have this problem, and he was asking the question, how does that come up? So it's a pretty good explanation that you gave us. Thank you so much for that. We need to take a couple quick messages, and we'll be right back. This is the Morning Panchayat on Akashvani 106.5 FM. Stay with us. Panchayat on Akashvani 106.5 FM. Our time 20 minutes before 9. Coming up at 9, Kamal Ratan and his program Pyar Ka Sagar. At 12 noon, Kamal Ramdat steps into the first installment of the afternoon yatra, and DJ Mamu takes over from 3. So much more for you. We're speaking with Swaha this morning on this edition of the Morning Panchayat. Another interesting issue, is it an issue we'll find out now, was raised during our program, as we had initially been discussing Mahasabha, Swaha and everything else. And somebody raised the suggestion that the Swaha is a politically aligned group to the PNM. Is the Swaha aligned to the PNM?
Swaha is non-aligned. Swaha has always been non-aligned. But it's important to go back and try to understand how this took place. Now, many years ago, when Mr. Pandey was in opposition, he was leader of the opposition, there was a lot of talk about Hindu Bhashan and Indian Bhashan. I think the PNM was in power at that time. So, the late Mr. Manning, he had a discussion with us, Swaha, and we asked certain questions to clarify in our minds whether this was so. About why Indians being fired and other people are being put in the position. And he mentioned to us, he said, Pandits, it's a political thing. You know, when a political party is in power, you know, they move the other people and put their people into it. So it appears as though it's Indian Bhashan, but it's not. Right? We're not firing Indians. It's more political. There are certain questions we asked to clear in our heads, whether this was really a case of racism against, Indians, whatever it may be. And at the end of it all, we were satisfied with the answers he gave us, that there is no evidence to really conclusively point to the fact that, whatever the government was doing was racist. So one of our pundits made the statement that until there is more compelling evidence to prove this, we cannot say that there is Indian Bhashan. That was what took place at the meeting. Now, the experts was here, TV6 was also there. Next year, we saw, much to our front page, Hindu group endorses PNM. Now, if you read the article inside, it had nothing to do much with that, but headlining. And most of our people, they just look at superficial things and jump to conclusions. Maybe they were hurt. I don't know what they believe. But what was conveyed by the headline was very misleading. Very, very misleading. And then shortly afterwards, I met Mr. Pandey at the funeral of the late Mr. Menon Hingu, who was a very strong member of SWAHA, and he was a very strong UNC activist. He died. I met Mr. Pandey and I told Mr. Pandey, you know, this is not so. He told me, he said, see, Pandit, I understand how newspaper behave. I get hit over my head many times already. Okay. But that very same night in Felicity, he had a meeting and he said publicly, I will not bow in any SWAHA Pandit's foot. That very same night. So he actually fueled this foolishness. You follow? Now, all these things I can testify to. All right, and then in addition to that, SWAHA was going beautifully. And they, you have the obstructionists on the other side who would want to make us sink. They don't want to see you progress. So even some pundits became part of that, telling people, they mispain him, don't call him to do puja. They mispain him, don't call him to do yag. This type of nonsense existed in the community. Some still exists. That has never been so. SWAHA has never been aligned to any political party. SWAHA has people from all parties. We have people belong to COP, UNC, PNM, whoever. So SWAHA has never taken a decision, has never ever, that we are going to align with any political party. It has never been so. So I want to clarify that. I've been hearing people saying that SWAHA moved the Chani from the Prime Minister's residence. How totally wrong and false is that? We don't know who did that. We heard afterwards there's somebody from Pinal. Right? It's a fellow who normally sings and so on, who pretends to be a pundit, I would think. They got him to move that. But again, SWAHA got the blows for it, which is totally wrong. But then we look at it from a different perspective. There's a good reason for everything. SWAHA was doing so much work, and not many people were recognizing SWAHA, but all of a sudden, in all the rum shops, all the bars, and all the remote areas, SWAHA was the topic of discussion. SWAHA has gone PNM. So I try to see the ray of light in that dark cloud. Actually, SWAHA became very well known, so much more known after that. But the steady fact, SWAHA is non-political.
Any press is good press.
Good press. Exactly.
How has that stigma affected the organization moving forward? It would have had a profound effect.
Definitely.
Because then you were dealing with a time when race was very prominent in all discussions.
Yes.
You had the Basdev Pandey movement, which was seen as Hindu.
Yes.
And SWAHA, being a Hindu group, would have seen as we say in local parlance, you're going against.
Yes.
So how did that really feature and affect your membership, affect your organization?
I don't think it affected the membership too much, right? But as individuals, right, I can speak like for myself. The first time in my life I've ever undergone something like this. My father, the Shankaracharya, the founder of SWAHA, the very first time I've heard people openly saying negative things about him, which were totally false. We know that. We know it was false. But you know, it's a growth process. You have to go through these things to grow. And what I have learned under such circumstances, maybe I wouldn't have learned otherwise. So it benefited us to some extent. You have to learn to take things out of that to develop yourself. But we are not really, say, badly damaged in any kind of way. Though that, I believe that was the intent. To destroy, to sink SWAHA. But it didn't happen, and it will not happen.
I think you have somebody on the phone. Let's see who's with us. Hello, good morning. Hi, good morning. Yes? Where are you calling us from? Shogunas. Okay. Alright, thanks for calling and telling us. We are having some technical difficulties. I'm not too sure exactly where across the country we're having them, but thanks for calling and letting us know.
I'm glad you raised the question of race relations. I'm glad you raised the questions of politics.
Yes.
And I want to refer to this marriage bill, marriage act, whatever you want to call it. My own opinion is that it was a matter for national discourse that was not properly handled. And I saw greater than or emerging more than the question of child marriage and UN conventions and modernizing our laws, the issue of race relations in this country. because to me it ended up being a question of who like to marry off little children, and therefore who are predators and who justify their interest in little girls with their religion, and who insist that they create little girls into victims and take advantage of them. And it became, in my opinion, an issue where the Hindu community was under a lot of focus and scrutiny. You did not have as much scrutiny of the Shouter Baptist community, which incidentally has similar laws. And even when Chogla sang his calypso, he chose to sing about a Hindu personality and a Hindu perspective rather than the overall issue itself, or all of the religious groups that might have had a vested interest in the existing legislation. Are you of the opinion that that legislation was handled in a way that generated race or even religious issues in the country?
Well, it depends on how people take things, right? I mean, to me, if something doesn't affect me, I don't respond to it. You follow? If the Hindu community reacted in this kind of way, you know, sometimes you ask yourself, well, why should I react in this kind of way if there's no truth in it? If there's truth in it, then if there's truth, I try to work it. If there's no truth, why do I fight about it? You know? So I really cannot say, I mean, I don't have to get to dabble too much in politics. Because I believe that, to be honest with you, there are too many games being played in Trinidad right now. Too many games. Everybody has an agenda. You know, there isn't, the ultimate objective is not really focused upon. It's a case of one-upmanship. Who could gain where? Who could project what? This is what I believe, and people are used as pawns and puppets in the entire thing, which I feel shouldn't be.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because there are a number of supporters of political parties who will vote on the basis of issues. But there are other people who will vote die hard,
yes,
PNM or UNC, regardless.
Yes, regardless.
And I don't think that they appreciate the role of the political agenda in shaping a society, and how the society becomes a subject of the political agenda rather than the shaper of the political agenda.
Well, definitely so. Definitely so. And how can we get them to change this way of thinking? This is where the problem lies. You know, I mean, it's a natural thing. The diehards will vote. But what can we do?
We have the UNC in opposition, which
yes,
is primarily East Indian, seen as primarily
yes,
Hindu. You have the PNM, which is in government, has been in opposition before, seen as primarily Afro, as primarily Indo. You have the COP, which many people contend is no longer a prospect. Some people may disagree, which was hard to define in terms of the demographic. What is your view of the slate of current political parties and the state of governance in the country?
I am not happy. I'll put it simple, I am not happy. So much more has to be done. But you know, I believe that it goes back more basic to the problem is the human being, the individual. Right? People compromise. They do also have adjustments based upon their own agenda. Where you have human beings, right, you could expect anything to happen. And you know, it's difficult, but sometimes you tend to lose faith and confidence in the human being. I have to see what is happening right now. As a matter of fact, in my own way, sometimes I feel a bit depressed about this. I see society as a very well-painted house, but termite-ridden. Termite-ridden.
So you're not happy?
I'm not happy.
Does that apply to the PNM?
Everybody.
Does that apply to the UNC?
Opposite also.
It's interesting that you've mentioned that it applies to the UNC, because people have the view that, or some people have the view that the UNC being perceived as a Hindu party, some Hindu people think that the UNC can do no wrong.
No, I don't believe that. One, there is man, he can do wrong. You know, I remember there's a great sage, his name Chandak Maharaj. He was the first politician, if you want to put it like this, political analyst, way back 300 BC. He wrote a lot of things about politics. He destroyed what we call a Nand dynasty by himself, politically. He said something, you know, when fish is swimming in water, the fish will drink, but nobody knows when. He says so to politicians. The individual, the human being, right? Our scriptures, Hindu scriptures tell us that. So not because we are a Hindu person, a Hindu party perceived, that we believe that you can do no wrong. Anybody could do wrong. And this is where the problem of spirituality comes in. If there's an absence of spirituality, you tend to believe that you can do anything and get away. Nobody knows. But I keep emphasizing, cause is effect concealed. Effect is cause revealed. And in time, everything is exposed.
Cause is effect
Concealed. And effect is cause revealed. Revealed. So in time to come, no matter what happens, who you are, no matter who you are,
it will show.
It will show.
What organization believes needs to be addressed on a national level? We're talking about the child marriage and so on. What are some of the other issues that interests or concerns your organization nationally?
Well, you have the other aspects, things like well, we spoke of pregnancy, like abortion, same-sex marriage, all these different kind of topics that are coming up. We are presently actively engaged in discussing these things, going to scriptures and see what we can get out of these things. Right? So the basic thing is that SWAHA looks at physical, social, spiritual, mental, the 4 aspects, 4 corners. Right? And we try to do whatever we can. And all aspects need to be improved upon. But we are very concerned about senior citizens and children. This is why we got into the children's home, and we are in the process of establishing senior citizens' homes. Because our scriptures tell us any society that disregards its very young and its aged, that society is doomed. We also believe a lot of in the empowerment of women. Women, the mothers, sisters, and daughters. I made a point last week was International Women's Day. Right? Hinduism is the only religion in history of all religions to have a complete scripture that deals specifically with women, the Devi Bhagavad. The power of the women. Not even a blade of grass can move without that woman, that Shakti we say. We understand that everything in this world is energy vibrating at different frequencies. Science has said that. Hinduism says, Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu, Sarva Rupena Sanchita. And everything is Devi, personified by the women, mothers, sisters, and daughters. If they are not empowered, if they are not protected, then something goes wrong. Society disintegrates. Society falls apart. And if you look at what is happening in society right now, who could be happy with it? Where the women are abused, children are being abused, old people, no respect, murdered. Can we be happy with that? The society is doomed. And a lot has to be done. But how can we do all this? So much has to be done. It's not a one attack only. It's a multifaceted approach we have to take.
I was about to ask that question. How do we deal with these problems?
Now, to me, I believe that the first step is to address the problem. That's a political thing. Now, I can't understand all this about politics. If I say, call a state of emergency, right?
It's interesting that you're saying arrest the problem.
Yes.
And you said that is about politics. There are many politicians who are talking about it is up to each individual to deal with themselves and change themselves. But you this morning, you are pointing fingers to the politicians.
No.
The commissioner said the same thing.
That is starting point. Each individual, yes, that's another facet of the approach. You have to start off with an individual. I can't go and pick up all the guns in the streets. Can I? I'm scared to do that. Right? I saw somebody say if you want to catch a rat, you set up
a bait.
Guide him in the direction. This is why I am saying, okay, state of emergency, limited maybe, push the criminals to another area, catch them there. This is what I call arresting the problem. Clean out the streets. Clear the guns off the streets. That's one aspect of it. Right? The other aspect, you have to go back to the schools, you have to go back to the homes, where the values. Check back and see when the first oil boom, maybe, I don't know, you all were young at that point in time, when the first oil boom...
did not exist at that point.
Okay, the first oil boom, what happened? The paradigm shifted from values to money. And once you shift to materialism, right, you actually condemn yourself. And from then, continuously, we keep shifting down and down. We measure everything in terms of money. As a matter of fact, Satish, once I did a Saraswati Puja for common entrance exam at that point in time. And the teachers in school, at the end of the puja, they said the puja boss. They didn't get enough arti. Now imagine what I'm saying here. I saw something in that. As a teacher, you are measuring the success of a puja with the arti that you got, the collection. Something has to be wrong with that. Right? The value shifted. So there was a shift away from spiritual values, which needs to be inculcated. And spirituality, I do mean religiousness. Because people they pray religiously. They go to temple, they clap, they sing and everything else, and right there they begin to tell their lies. Practice their deceit, etc., etc. Spirituality, honesty, sincerity, dutifulness, wherever you go, these qualities go with you. Which one of us could honestly say that we went to work and we did everything to the best of our ability, we didn't sneak out a minute or two? Which one of us could say that? We must understand there are sins of commission and omission. And I believe the majority of us are suffering from sins of omission. What we are supposed to, but we don't. Not doing something bad alone is sinful. Not doing what we are supposed to do. So all these small things we need to look at. I keep saying, like a vehicle. You could have a very, very powerful vehicle, loud mag rims, loud color, whatever. If you don't tighten the wheel nuts, you're not going anywhere. And I believe that the wheel nuts in life need to be tightened.
It's a pretty interesting discussion that we'll have. We just have about 2 minutes again before the end of our program, and it has been an enlightening discussion, vastly different from what we're accustomed to on this show, and delving into one element that people are suggesting we need to delve into more to fix some of the problems that we have to fix, and that of course is religion and spirituality.
Spirituality, yes.
And the overall,
Yes.
the entire package, not just focusing on religion alone. And we thank you this morning for coming and sitting with us and explaining to us a bit about who you are, what your organization is about, and so on, so that those persons who listened to us this morning can have a clearer idea of what's taking place and can make more informed decisions. We thank you so much for your time this morning, and don't be a stranger to the show. We'll of course invite you back again as time permits for us to discuss further issues.
Thank you.
But as we always say,